Welcome back. After a lengthy legal battle that spanned almost a decade, the Gqeberha High Court has acquitted Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso and his co-accused of charges including rape and human trafficking. The judge ruled that the National Prosecuting Authority had not proved its case beyond reasonable doubt. So what does this mean for the victims and the broader conversation around sexual abuse and justice in South Africa? Let's now bring in Faith Action Collectives into this conversation. We are joined by Daniela Gennrich. Daniela, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Your initial reaction to that acquittal judgment being handed down by Judge Schoeman yesterday, what went through your mind?
Thank you very, very much, and greetings to your viewers. Well, essentially, I think it's precipitated something of a crisis. Particularly, what I actually did was I immediately contacted different people that are involved with the Faith Action Collective, and we will speak out South Africa as its secretariat, and particularly some of the survivors that we work with. And I would like to, if you would allow me, to just really mention the re-traumatization of thousands of survivors through this judgment. The sense of betrayal of the justice system, the sense of ongoing betrayal of many faith leaders. And I'd like to just read one comment that came back from a survivor, rape survivor. "I'm shattered, broken, and hurt by the level of re-victimization that the justice system is doing to survivors. It's unfair that the evidence is not enough to call a perpetrator to account, yet we live with the evidence of the scars of pain, rage, brokenness, and fear." And I think that speaks for thousands of survivors in the country. I think apart from that, it's this kind of judgment can also embolden faith leaders, unethical faith leaders, and other men who get the sense of that God is on their side. Because I think that faith leaders who engage in this kind of activity somehow feel entitled to use what we call in our recent interfaith strategy on gender-based violence, spiritual abuse, which is using the scriptures, using their power, the power of the name of God, to abuse the most vulnerable. And it is completely in contradiction to any of our sacred texts, any of our fundamental values and principles. So it is really, really shocking. And I believe it needs to galvanize us as faith leaders, as our collective of faith leaders and so on, into real action, to also say to survivors, what these women have done is actually heroic, and it is godly what they have done. Because many, I think, feel that they cannot contradict their faith leaders because somehow they are questioning God. That is not the case. We have to stand up for the principles and the values that our faiths actually stand for, and not be afraid to speak out against such behaviors. But it's not only those who are the faith leaders that perpetrate such things. It is also the systems of justice, the people involved, who take these things lightly and do not understand the extent of damage that is done to a person's life. As one of our survivor partners has said, when you are abused, your spirit is attacked. And so it's more important for faith leaders than anybody else to respond effectively and to be allies of survivors and not be protecting anyone who is questioned in terms of these matters.
Yeah, I just quickly want to read a paragraph from the judgment. This is what Judge Irma Schoeman had to say about the NPA and about the accused. She says that I view the explanations of the accused as improbable and I don't subjectively believe them. However, due to the uncertainty of the actions of the state and the lack of proper cross-examination, I cannot find that the accused versions are so improbable that they cannot reasonably possibly be true. She added that the accused bore no onus to convince the court convince the court of their innocence. And for me, it goes back to this element that I was raising a bit earlier on today, this morning as well. The acquittal does not necessarily mean that these alleged incidents did not take place, but it is about whether the state can prove beyond reasonable doubt that the accused are actually guilty of the crime.
You know, we believe that the whole notion of proof beyond reasonable doubt is really problematic, particularly in cases of rape and sexual abuse and gender-based violence, which mostly take place in private. And so even, for example, the Anglican Church, which is now introduced and embedding deeply within its church law and in its church structures, a process of safe and inclusive church for safeguarding. We are also grappling with that question. What standards need to be introduced that are survivor-centered, that protect the vulnerable, and that take into account the heavy responsibility on faith leaders in particular, that allow for a balance of probability rather than this very rigid sense? Because, you know, as we have seen in this case throughout the years, the kind of gaslighting that we know is common among abusers that can then confuse and ultimately result in a judgment like this. We have to be wiser than that.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Daniela. I just quickly want to bring up the poll that we're running this morning. I'd love to hear your take on it. Yes. So we're asking our audience, what aspect of the Omotoso acquittal do you find most concerning? These are the 4 options. The length of the trial, the outcome of the trial, the state's conduct, the impact on the victims. And so far, 69% of the people that have participated in the poll have voted the state's conduct. If you were to participate in this poll, which one would you be choosing? I know for some people it's perhaps maybe all of them, but which one do you say would be the one that really sticks out?
Well, it's interesting that you haven't included the conduct of the faith sector. So I know I'm now adding something extra, but I think that is another thing that we really have to consider. And so for me, that would be a key thing. And for the reason that I think the other thing that I find most disturbing, as I said right at the beginning, is the impact on not just those women who took the risk, put their lives on the line, and the impact on them and society's response in terms of the way people have related to them and have stigmatized them and undermined them. But what it is doing to survivors across this country, which is already traumatized over and over and over again. So for me, and as the faith sector, our primary responsibility is towards those who have been wounded, who have been undermined, their lives have been destroyed in this way. And for a justice system to not be able to at least give them that aspect towards their healing, for me is hugely problematic.